Okay, so picking up on the previous video that we did, tutorial that we did, I've just done a couple of things. I've just changed the color of the model that I was working on. I've got the opacity turned up 100%, so we're not seeing through it. We'll just get the sense of the geometry of the model. Everything's looking pretty tidy. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add the hand and the feet to the model. Okay, so hand can be a little bit tricky here and there, but here we go. Let's start. So start really with a really basic plane. So let's just start with a plane, and we'll put keyboard entry in, and I think I'll put it in at something like 12 centimeters by 12 centimeters. That kind of roughly fits my model's size. I'm probably going to have to scale it at some point anyway to fit the model perfectly, but it's a good starting point. Okay, so I'm predominantly working with this, so for the time being I'm just going to right click and isolate the selection, so that's all I'm looking at. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this top end up here has the necessary polygon count to attach to the arm later on. So let's look at what I'm talking about in 2 seconds. So let's go and convert this into a editable poly. Let's go to the sub-object vertex level, and let's reduce the edge count around this top area up here. So what we're going to do is we are going to choose target weld and go click, click, and click, and click. So it's click and drag to use the target weld, turn the target weld off. And then we're going to go to the sub-object edge level, and we're going to select these edges, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Oops, do that again. Hit the Windows key by accident. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So we've just got those selected. And now we're going to use the split tool. So just click on that, and then I'm just selecting the front edge, and then I'm holding the control key, selecting the second edge, and I'm just going to slide those away. These are going to be our fingers. So let's just slide those away a little bit like so. Let's just get that space in there to begin with, and we can refine these in a little while. Okay, so now it is just a case of a little bit of refinement. Well, while we're here, what we might as well do as well is take this back edge. So click, control, click. And this time I'm just going to hold the shift key down and drag out in effect. I don't like what happened there. There's something, oh yeah, I accidentally had these edges connected and selected also, so I'll deselect everything. Go in there. There, so select those 2 edges, hold the shift key, click and drag, and basically you're creating a new set of polygons by doing that. That's a very, we'll come back to that in another tutorial because that's a really, really useful modelling approach called edge modelling. Okay, so for the time being that's all we've got. Let's just do a little bit of refinement on these fingers, nothing too fancy. So look at, I'm going to model the left hand, so I'm going to use my own left hand as a reference. So putting my left hand on the table, I can look at roughly the alignment and size of each of the fingers. So I'll drag that one out like so. That's going to be a little bit longer. And that's going to be a bit short just in there, and that's going to be the smallest one. So I'm just going to move between the rotate and scale tools using the E and R key on the keyboard. So rotate will let me just turn those edges like so. W will just let me move an edge wherever I want it to be. That's something I want to avoid doing. I don't want to be lifting it in the air like that, so just be careful. Just do do that. I'm going to just then R just to scale it like so, and I might scale that as well. Okay, and then maybe just pull that over a little bit on the Y, that's good. R to scale on the Y axis. W to grab that, and that'll be the knuckle. And that knuckle will be slightly higher. A little rotation just to spin things. I mean, these things aren't critical. This is just me having just setting things up a little bit. Okay, and this one, let's scale that down. It feels a little bit long, so let's just pull that back a little bit. Let's pull that back a little bit. And I think, looking at my fingers, that's probably the scale's about right. Let's rotate that a little bit and just tuck it in a little bit. Okay. Fair enough. Maybe just pull that in a little bit more. Take that vert there and just pull that out. Okay. So it's just a very simple top-down view. That's good. Let's give this a little bit of volume now. Okay, so we're just going to add a shell modifier. So the shell modifier will, I'm using the inner amount here so that I'm modeling from the top, and the shell modifier is giving that kind of volume at the bottom, and I think the inner amount at 3 is plenty. Okay, so we can just do a little bit of tweaking here, and if I hit the show end result, you get to see the effect of these. I'm just going to start just tweaking these fingers a little bit. So again, moving between 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the sub-object vertex, edge, and poly selection. You can just go around and tweak these a little bit and make sure that they're a little sense of volume about them. Okay, like so. We can do a lot more tweaking later on, but just to get that initial sense of volume and shape, that'll kind of do for the time being, I think. And what we can do now is we can go and put on top of it. So just keep your eye on this in the modifier list. I'm just going to add on top of everything, I'm going to add an edit poly modifier. And the edit poly modifier will let me do further tweaking like so. So I can go to edge. Occasionally you'll just have to drop in and out of various sub-object levels to get your selection sorted, but there we go. So it's just a case of tweaking until things are roughly the way you want them to be. Remember, we can do a lot of refinement later on. This is much more to do with getting that initial shape and volume sorted. Okay, so fair enough. Alright, I'll leave that for the time being. Now we'll get to the slightly trickier stage of adding the thumb into this section. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the sub-object edge level, right click on this edge, or select this edge, right click on it, and then just insert a vertex. And the vertex I'm going to insert is about there. And then I'm going to drop down to the sub-object vertex level, and I'm going to hold the control key, select those two together, right click and hit connect. Okay, looks good. And then deselect everything, and then one more time select that vertex and select the top one up there and right click and connect. So you should have a nice diagonal created there, like so. Okay, deselect, come out of sub-object vertex level. So there we have the beginnings of our little hand shape, and as I say, we can do a lot more modelling of, oh hello, everything's gone a bit, there we go. We can do a lot more modelling. I seem to be stuck in some selection mode here. Okay, I'm out and refinement of things like oh, hello. That kind of thing there just jumped out, needed a little bit of attention. Okay, so now let's go to the subobject polygon level and take that, and that. So that little selection there. Essentially, we're going to create the palm and thumb joint from this selection. Actually, just going to deselect that. Oh, I lost my selection. I was just going to deselect that end polygon anyway, so that's okay. And let's just extrude that. That looks okay to me. We can further refine that in a moment. Yep, that looks alright. So I'm just going to go to the edge subobject level, and I'm going to take that edge and that edge. Again, it was just Control click to select both edges, and then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click on the remove loop. So that will just tidy those edges up for me for the moment, give me the shape that I now need to begin modelling the thumb from the side. Looks about right. Okay, looks good to me. Just check underneath. That looks okay. Just going to move that edge. Just going to slide that back. Okay, and then drop down to the vertex subobject level. Take that edge, actually push that back a little bit. And then just going to select that one single vert there, and I'm going to use the chamfer tool, and I'll go to the chamfer settings, and I will put the vertex chamfer segments down to 0, and I'll just start to introduce this. I find I have to click through it because it kind of jumps quite quickly, so I kind of only want, I don't want everything to go crazy, so that looks about right. A little bit of gap there, which is what I want, and then I just hit OK. And that gives me the polygon that I need for the thumb. I just need to do a bit of shaping now to put that polygon into the right position to get the thumb. There's a couple of things that we can do here, so we can click that and that. So I'm selecting those two verts together, and I'm going to use the alignment tool. I'm going to use it on the y-axis just to make sure that everything is well aligned, and maybe on the x-axis. That just straightens things out. Every now and then it's easy and convenient just to use the align tool. So it's kind of basically just you know, you have a vert that's kind of gone very stray and you want to get it lined up with everything else. You can select certain verts and then realign them. Nice and easy. Okay, so let's get this thumb into position, this thumb joint into a kind of nice square-like position for us. So let's pull that over a wee bit. Let's take that edge, just pull that out a little bit, like so. It's not bad. Take that top bit, but maybe just drop that up a little bit. Looks about right. Okay. Just be a little bit fiddling around here while we get things nice and straight or squarish for our extrusion that we're about to put on. So I think maybe on the x-axis, just pull those two together. That's perhaps a little bit too square there, that one in there, so just pull it out a little bit. It's kind of collapsing in a little bit on the mesh. Take that over. It's just about getting that kind of space for the thumb joint. It's a bit fiddly when you're doing it. I find it a bit fiddly anyway. Okay. Kind of right-ish. Let's have a little look. I think we're kind of Something about that edge is a bit off. It'll do. It'll do. Don't overthink it, and we'll just go with that. And then we'll do a little extrusion there. So get the thumb out. There's one, and there's the second extrusion, and then let's just scale that down straight away. Scale it down and move it across. Didn't mean that. Let's not move that across. Okay. And then it's just a case of getting in and refining it and giving it the kind of volume that we would normally expect. Volume and line. So just I'll just pause this for a while I do a little bit of tweaking on this, and then pick it back up in 2 seconds. Okay. Okay, so kind of it's rough and ready, but it's kind of got the right flow. So what I'm going to do is just go in here now and start preparing it for connection back to the arm. A little bit of tweaking, inevitably, it does kind of drive you a little bit bonkers doing this at times. It's the sort of thing you can just tweak forever and ever and never be quite satisfied with something. But later on, depends on the time you've got. Later on, you could spend forever sculpting this in, taking this into something like Mudbox or ZBrush and really go into town on the details. But we're just doing a low poly box modeling exercise, so let's just stick to not going too mad and obsessive about the whole thing. Okay, so I'm going to delete these end polys because that's going to be the 6-sided polygonal shape that I need to connect back to the arm. A bit of tweaking will be necessary, no doubt, so let's take a few edges. I think they're probably a little bit too far apart. And yep, I think we're kind of there. Roughly, that'll do. A little bit more form needed around some of these finger points here, and there's a few edges that I could do with a little bit of additional tweaking just to get them feeling better. That's better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Maybe that one's a bit broad. Just sneak them together a bit, and you can see why going through using your keyboard makes a big difference doing this, because you can just jump around your keys and move between the selection that you need. Okay, that'll do. Stop fiddling around, Mike. Get on with it. Alright, so right click, end isolate, and then let's take this object and rotate it. He says, come out. Might have accidentally done that, so let's just rotate that round. Let's look at it from the top and just align it from the front. Let's align it, rotate it, drop it down a wee bit from the top again, and yep, that's one big hand. I'm just, again, if I accidentally lose where I'm at, I just hit Z and kind of zoom out or zoom to the selected object. Okay, so it's kind of about right. Let's scale that now. Let's scale it so it kind of makes sense. And just give it a little tiny bit of scaling, a bit more scaling, a little bit thinner, I think. A little bit more. Oh, hey, undo that. More scaling that way. Looks about right to me. Well, we'll see. We can always scale it back up if it's not quite the right size. Looks about right. Let's just tweak those angles a little bit. And position a little bit, that's good. And we're going to have a bridge between the two, so we can tweak all this in a moment. Alright, so the first thing we did, like we did before when we were joining the arms and the legs, we go back to the main body and go to the polygon level in the stack, look for the attach button. He says, look for the attach button, there it is, attach the hand. Okay, now that they are attached, we can use the border command. So select one border, hold the control key, select the other border, and then we can use the bridge key, or the bridge option. Okay, and there it is, because it was six-sided and we kept everything six-sided, pretty much bridged quite nicely. Okay, so I would get in now and start tweaking. Get in now and start tweaking the size of the wrist, etc., scaling it, maybe lengthening the fingers, etc., etc. But you know, just straight off the bat, at least it connected. Yeah, fingers look a little bit short. The hand looks a little bit big, if I'm honest, bit broad. But you know, we can get in there and we can maybe take that, hit the loop, scale it down a little bit, like so, he says. And then the minute you start doing this, you're into all sorts of tweaking to try and get the correct balance, and then it becomes an obsession. Okay, so I'm not going to get overly obsessed. I'm just going to accept that pretty much it's there. I could tweak it infinitely later, which I will do. But for the time being, that hand is made and it is in position. Said I wasn't going to tweak, and then I begin tweaking. So that was a bad scale. Let's get right in the middle there. Getting in. Did that loop work? No, it doesn't seem to be. Just turn that off, go back down to there. Make sure that loop's going all the way around, which it does appear to be. And not quite getting the scale the way I want it to be, but just a bit that way. Okay, I'll stop. Stop before I get crazily obsessive. Okay, so all we need to do now is do a quick save where we're at, and then from the save we'll then add the foot. Okay, so let's do that. So just before we put the foot on, so just before we get the hold on one second. Oh yeah, well, just before we continue, what I'm going to do is just put the biped, make the biped visible so we can roughly get the scale of where we're up to. I just realised before when I was adding the hand on, I didn't display the biped at all, so just to make amends for that, just so roughly everything's lined up. Elbow joints, shoulder joints, hip joints, knee joints, everything's pretty much where it needs to be, and then we can turn that off, have a look at the model and think, right, we're going to add the feet out the bottom here. Okay, I think we're good. Just make sure that your torso is on, your biped is on for the moment. Just going to go to the border sub-object level, make sure that that bottom border is selected, and like we did before, we're going to hold the shift key and I'm just going to drag that down. Just going to make this pretty blocky. I'm not going to go into the same modelling detail that I did with the toes. I'm just pretty much going to make it kind of boot type platform foot. Okay, here we go. Just because it's getting on a bit, and well, you can refine it if you really want to later. Anyway, here we go. That's pretty much the right height, so let's just turn the biped off for a second. Just going to cap that, and then I'm going to go to the sub-object polygon level, take 1, 2, 3 polys, and I'm going to extrude those, but again I'll put the biped on for this extrude moment, and I'll just extrude it out pretty much to the edge of the toes, like so, and looks good. Well, Doesn't look good actually, it's like a big club foot, but it's good enough for what we need at the moment. So what I might do here is just take a few of those edges and just move them out to cover what we need. Make sure that we've got a kind of rough approximation of everything being covered. Okay, and then from the side, just going to change the opacity of the material, so drop it into a grey, and then we can see through it again. So to do that, I'll just clarify in the material editor. So as my material, look for the special features option here inside the material, and basically if it's white, it's completely opaque, you can't see through it. If it's grey, it's 50% opaque. If it's black, it's transparent. So somewhere in there should do it. Give us the sort of transparency that we're looking for. And now at the sub-object vert level, I'm just going to grab those top verts and I'm just going to pop those down into that kind of form there. That should do it for what we need. And then I guess we just go through and tweak little bits and pieces, but roughly I know that covers the pipette. So let's have a little look. We could go in and do a lot more refining in there, a little swift loop somewhere in there, I guess, and then take that loop. Oh, come off the swift loop. Take that loop, and let's just do a little scale on there. Give it a little bit of scale. In fact, that's not the way I want to scale it. I want to scale it out like so. Okay, roughly that's gonna do it for now. I think if I just come back a little bit, change my opacity back to white, 100%, put the symmetry mod on, have a little look at the overall structure. I'm not quite getting the full opacity I was expecting. There we go, that's better. And I think I'm going to leave it there. Topology looks pretty tidy. Everything, the kind of key points around the knees, in around the hips, where the limbs connect, under the arms, elbows, wrist, etc., around the neck. The topology is all flowing. So when you're modeling yours, just kind of occasionally refer back and make sure that the topology, if I just grab that and rotate, just make sure that your topology kind of feels the same. And then from here, as I say, you can go in and make really kind of like fine adjustments. But the first thing is to get that topology nice and even across the model. So if you put a biped inside it, it isn't going to crease and going to get vertex popping out all over the place. Which we will do later. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. Over and out. Brilliant.